The French public were voting today. Le Pen would win the first round with 23% of the vote. That's 2% ahead of either Sarkozy or Socialist Party rival Martine Aubry. Despite the news, Le Pen says her party won't get complacent.
I see this poll as an indication. I don't see it as an established fact. I know there's a lot of work to be done for the National Front, a lot of work to present our project to the French. I hope we are seeing the start of an awakening for the French people, because it's very fashionable at the moment.
The fashion she's referring to is the rise of the far right in Europe. Last week, a similar survey in the UK revealed 48% would consider supporting an anti-immigration party, parties that already exist, with strong followings in Austria and the Netherlands. But the poll has sent shockwaves through French politics. Now, Sarkozy's rival, Dominique de Villepin, is being asked by his former spokeswoman not to challenge the president at the polls next May. She fears a split in the votes for the mainstream right could hand a victory to the National Front. Charlie Angela, AlJazeera.
So much more online at aljazeera.net/English, live streaming as well of the channel when you want to catch up with broadcasts when you're away from your television. Right now, though, as it is 1:30, we're going to check the headlines. The battle for control of Libya is raging right across the country. Fierce fighting has seen the rebels try to hold back counterattacks from Muammar Gaddafi's forces. In Misrata, these pictures show rebel forces celebrating after claiming victory over Gaddafi's military. The city's been the scene of some of the heaviest fighting. At least 18 people reported to have been killed. Gaddafi himself has made a brief appearance in Tripoli, broadcast on state television, showing his supporters that he is in fact still in the capital. While his forces continue to wage counterattacks in towns and cities secured by rebels, Bin Jawad has apparently been reclaimed by the army, and in Ras Lanuf, residents are reportedly fleeing for fear of more fighting there. It's having an effect on the global economy as well, all this fighting. 3 weeks ago, in the lull between Egypt and Libya's uprising, US crude was at $85 a barrel, but the attacks on oil depots slowing production have pushed that up to a 2.5-year high of more than $106. Over the same time period, Brent crude oil has risen from $103 to $117 a barrel. And as a result, markets are taking a hit. The Nikkei in Tokyo is down more than 2% on Monday. Australia's benchmark ASX 200 is down about 1%. Elsewhere in the region, Yemen, where at least one person has died in clashes with government loyalists. 52 protesters were wounded in Ib city, 190 kilometres south of the capital, Sana'a. And another member of parliament has resigned from the ruling party, the 14th in the past week. Sheikh Hassan Ali Anan quit in protest at the government's treatment of protesters. Saudi Arabia reportedly building up its security forces in the eastern part of the country. Comes in response to protests there calling for more rights for Shia Muslims. New video posted on a social media website appears to show a protest in Qatif on Friday. On Saturday, the Interior Minister banned all demonstrations in the kingdom. In other news, US Defense Secretary Robert Gates has arrived in Afghanistan. His visit comes as US troops prepare to begin a phased withdrawal due for July. Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai is due to announce a timetable for the gradual handover of security responsibility from NATO-led forces to Afghans. And the trial of former French President Jacques Chirac on corruption charges begins in a few hours. This dates back to his time as mayor of Paris. Prosecutors claim Chirac conjured up fake jobs to pay supporters. Once again, those are your headlines on Al Jazeera. Inside Story is next.
Thousands of Egyptian protesters stormed the headquarters of the State Security Service and demand the organization be abolished. The agency is accused of widespread human rights abuses and torturing its own citizens. So why is the security apparatus so feared and hated? And what role could it play in the new post-revolution Egypt? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Darren Jordan. 3 weeks after President Hosni Mubarak's ousting, Egyptians are turning their anger towards his internal security apparatus, storming the agency's main headquarters and seizing documents to help build a case that the service was used as a tool of torture and abuse against ordinary Egyptians. The protesters are demanding the agency be dismantled and its leaders face justice. Amin Mohyeddin has more.
Outside the gates of the sprawling state security compound in Cairo, Egyptian soldiers stand guard. This fortified complex was home to the country's most notorious security apparatus. But in the new Egypt, even its ironclad doors were not enough to keep protesters from overtaking the compound on Saturday evening. Inside, protesters found documents, police records, underground rooms, and even a passageway that led to a secret living quarter they claimed was used by the powerful Minister of Interior, now standing trial. They also found bags of shredded documents. With the recent departure of the Mubarak-appointed Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq, protesters feared that state security officials would destroy all evidence that could implicate them. After protesters stormed this massive state security compound behind me, Egypt's new prime minister asked anyone with incriminating evidence or documents to hand them over to the military so that they can be used in the prosecution of former regime officials. Documents like these obtained by Isra Abdel Fattah, who was detained by state security twice for her political activism, show how state security was spying on her, even hacking into her email accounts to find out which organizations she was involved in and who she was in regular contact with.
These records show they were extremely paranoid from us. Every piece of information that for us seemed insignificant would be significant for them. They were convinced that there must have been some international organization behind my activities.
That sense of paranoia led state security to act with impunity for years, many say. State security officials were often accused of corruption, extortion, and torturing activists and citizens alike. Today, on the walls of the abandoned complex that came to symbolize the oppression Egyptians endured under the previous regime, a simple message left behind by the protesters. This is the fate of the oppressors. Amin Mohyeddin, AlJazeera, Nasser City.
So what's the history behind Egypt's infamous state security service? Well, Egypt was the first Arab state to establish a security service in 1913 under British mandate. It still exists to this day. The Internal Security Service has been accused of some of the worst human rights abuses in order to suppress dissent against Hosni Mubarak's 30-year rule. It's rumoured the agency has some 500,000 staff and a large network of informants. The history of torture allegations against the agency has grown since the war on terror was launched after 9/11. The Egyptian government's been accused of turning the country into a torture centre for terror suspects and even acknowledged that since 2001, the US government transferred up to 70 detainees to Egypt under extraordinary rendition. Well, to discuss Egypt's state security agency are our guests. In Cairo, Hisham Safi Eldin, a former police officer. In Dubai, Theodore Karasik, a director of research at the Institute for Near East and Gulf Military Affairs. And also in Cairo, Hossam El Hamalawi, who's an Egyptian blogger and activist. Gentlemen, welcome to the programme. Hisham Safi Eldin, let me start with